Sound therapy is the general term, but we also have to look at what's called sound-based therapy. It's much more defined than those other two, because sound-based therapy uses sound vibration to impact the body with special equipment, programs, modified music, and/or specific tones and beats, but very importantly, the need for which is identified with appropriate testing. So the field of sound therapy in its entirety will make change, but if we take many different sound-based therapies, each one of those can be utilized independently, but when you follow the correct continuum of its use, that you're going to have maximum success. So for me to review with you today are these concepts. First thing I'm going to look at is our human response. When you are enjoying sound, you can be calm and relaxed. You can feel motivated, uplifted. You can stay focused. You can enhance your responsiveness when you are really enjoying the sound. But sound can also negatively impact you. And one of the things that can be is perhaps you want to be isolated because there's too much going on, or you avoid noisy situations. People who have difficulty listening in background noise, or they either avoid talking or they hog the conversations, peer over anxious. When I first got trained in my first sound-based therapy, which was in 1992, my specialty had been in middle ear infections, auditory processing, assistive devices for the deaf and hard of hearing, and people with auditory processing challenges. And I was following that pathway because I was always looking for what do you do with what you hear and how can you maximize it. And so it always felt like I was treating symptoms. These are symptoms. And so all I was doing with what I had been previously doing was treating those symptoms. I wanted to get more to core issues. And so when I looked in my audiology textbooks for what happens when there's too much sound, these were comments that were made. Well, these also are the same comments that can be directed to those people who have sound processing challenges, and I'll differentiate that for you in a minute. So now let's look at the child with special needs. We see the child who covers their ears, turns the TV volume up. As a parent, perhaps that's your situation. You'll say, well, how can my child be sensitive to sound because they're always blasting that TV? Well, typically what they're doing in that case is they're increasing the intensity of the TV to block out what they're also hearing 2 and 3 rooms away, so that they're more alive in the moment, feeling good with what they're seeing. Doesn't mean that it's actually okay for them, but they want to enjoy the TV, so they want to block out what's going on around them. We see fears of sound. That's often the thing that I have hardest time eliminating because I'm passing through the emotional centers in the brain. We see people who tune out the world, and I have found that people who typically tune out the world are those that are hypersensitive to sound. I've identified 3 different types of hearing hypersensitivity, and I'm working on a 4th one. And so it's really important to identify which one of those hypersensitivities is present so we know what to address. We see not liking background noise. Too much to process sometimes, the sound could be an indicator. We see that they react sometimes and not others. Very common for a parent to share with me that I'm not sure if they're sensitive to sound. They don't do it in this case on some days and this way and another day, so it's up in the air for them. And something that I see common in case histories is that they have acted deaf at some time in their life, so they go and get their hearing tested. Well, with all of that, we have a form of auditory deprivation. It's when your brain doesn't receive the necessary information to make those connections. And as a result of those misconnections, you're going to have misperceptions of sound. So you see hypersensitivities to sound. You see stilted learning bits and pieces of things. You see disconnected speech, choppy speech, beginning and ends of words or just the middles of words. Difficulty in background noise. Auditory processing timing lag. That's something that you say something to the person, you've anticipated a response, but they haven't responded. So you go on to the next segment, and then they respond. In effect, what they have to do is to take what you just gave them, decode it, make it one, figure out all the pieces that became those ones, put those ones back together, and then put them back together so they can respond. So whereas you are doing something like this, they're doing it in many, many clicks. Weak auditory discrimination skills, an important skill for comprehension. For example, many of our speech sounds are very similar and very quick to hear, we have to be quick to hear the differences. So for example, the letters T and D, t, t, very quick, crisp sounds, and if you do not hear those differences, you can't understand it. The easiest way for me to say it is with the word bat. The bat is in the closet. They hear you're bad and go to the closet. So what is the difference? That can be major, emotionally, understanding-wise. They're positive they heard you say that. Why would you say that? And why did they go do it? And you look at them saying, what did you just do? Sometimes if we can just stop and think about what they've done and what could they have possibly heard, it gives a lot more understanding to the situation. Localization of sound. Where is a sound coming from? Very important for us as human beings, for our survival, let alone communication. We have to know where a sound is coming from. If we don't localize to it, by the time we have localized, we've missed out on some major happenings. Emotional instability. We process sound from the cochlea to the brain, and it passes through our limbic system, which is our emotional center. So on top of miscommunication, like you're bad and go to the closet, destruction to figuring out what they're doing all day long,